Good morning, everyone, and I'm being told that we are now live. Welcome back to our second video cast of Get Holiday Ready. We are super excited to have returning faces back with us and new faces joining for the episode on price research. And for this episode, I'm also super excited to have with us our very own Svea, expert lead for advanced research methods. Svea, good morning. Welcome to the webinar.
Hi, Hossein. Thanks for having me.
Svea, we talked a lot backstage about the importance of having these seasonal content and the importance that our partners and that companies everywhere prepare for the seasonality that's coming up and doing right research and doing correct research. So maybe I wanted to ask you the question again on air because I really liked your answer and what we talked about. Why do you think having these things and having the series like this is important for the people joining us?
So I think last week Gabriela said something like it's a crash course in market research, and I completely agree on that. And on top, I just really love the idea of sharing knowledge because a huge part of my role is actually doing a lot of secondary research. So watching YouTube videos, reading blog posts, participating in webinars like this. And I'm always so amazed on how much great content there's shared in the community. And I'm always so happy if I learn something from stuff that is not behind a paywall. And I just like that we are supporting this idea of learning from each other, of helping our clients and other people to become better market researchers. Just love this concept of sharing knowledge.
That's amazing, and I'm super happy to have you here with us. I think if they saw my post on LinkedIn, everybody knows how I'm excited to have you here. This is a very anticipated episode that we have today. I already had a lot of people messaging me on LinkedIn, asking questions specific to price analysis. So I think a lot of our viewers are very, very excited for us to dive right in. So we're just gonna let it happen, and we're gonna dive right in. Price for your customer. Svea, I'll let you kick us right off.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a research consultant,
Mhm.
and every day we see questions like this, right? So, example, when we feedback questionnaires for our clients, and I always like wonder and ask myself, I mean, this is not a very realistic scenario, right? I mean, of course, there are exceptions like pay what you want concepts, or if you are on a local market. But for the reality or for the majority of commercial interactions that our consumers are used to, it just doesn't work like that, right? And I mean, there are good reasons for that. But maybe just let's run a quick test and see how good people are in estimating or guessing prices.
Starting
So
off strong. I love it.
yes, yes.
Let's do it. Just before we do that, I can let everyone know, since we're already running the test, that if you look on the right hand side, you'll see now the options that are going to be activated for you. The chat is going to be activated. You can chat with us and tell us whatever you want during the webinars. And then the Q&A option will also be activated. And we're seeing that the first poll is already jumping up. So maybe we move the slides and we start with the very first poll. So what do we got here, Svea?
So we have this beautiful pumpkin spice latte, which is a
Hmm.
smooth combination of coffee and a variety of milk flavors, and it actually has 0 calories,
Hmm.
no added sugar, so also very healthy. What's your best guess? What would be the optimal price for this product?
Honestly, it's a good thing that I can't vote because my first answer for the optimal price is already going to be higher. Uh, you can catch me paying a lot of money on my pumpkin spice lattes.
Okay,
Mhm.
so the answers are in 70%. So the majority says 3.99. We actually also ran a quick survey using the Van Westendorf. We will learn all about that later on. And actually, the optimal price is 3.99, so quite close, very good.
Mhm.
Let's look at another example, which is maybe not as everyday as our spice pumpkin latte. We have this beautiful reusable advent calendar tree, which you can basically create your customizable compartments and reuse every Christmas. What do you think the optimal price for this beauty would be?
Hmm.
It's euros, by the way. I think we forgot the signs.
Oh, mixed
Okay, now,
crowd.
yeah, very mixed. We see that the majority says it should be about 50 euros. And again, we did a poll using the Van Wessendorp. And actually, the poll said the optimal price would be 90 euros. So highly underestimated this price. So I guess you get the idea. It's not that easy, right?
My
Asking
idea is that I should be selling advent calendars. If people think they're willing to buy them for 90 euros, sign me up.
Well, I mean, apparently, yeah, it looks sexy, right?
Mhm.
So let's look at some reason why it's not a good idea to ask people directly for their willingness to pay, right? The first one is that we just saw people often have no clear idea of what product or service actually costs, right? So for everyday kind of purchase like drinks, it works quite well. We saw that, but for more abstract other kind of services or product, people really struggle and then just throw in some random numbers.
Mhm.
The second issue is that people often under or overestimate their own willingness to pay. So, um, depending on different influencing factors such as brand familiarity, for example, if people are unfamiliar with a brand, they tend to underestimate their own willingness to pay. If it's a love brand, they tend to overestimate it. And then another issue is that if you ask people like, hey, what are you willing to pay for my product? You're completely neglecting the potential of price psychological effects, such as price thresholds, right? I mean, there are numerous studies showing what huge difference it makes if you put a 9.99 versus a 10 euros on the price tag. And I mean, it sounds kind of manipulative, maybe it is, but still, if you ask them directly, you miss out on these subtle opportunities. And I mean, let's be completely honest. Of course, advanced pricing methods aren't completely immune to this kind of issues. I mean, we are still talking about quantitative um, market research. Of course, the result will somehow differ from real world behavior where there are a multitude of influencing factors. But I think it's fair to say that they are less affected by these issues, and they also come with some very important advantages. The first one is that advanced pricing methods really help the respondents by asking some well designed questions and therefore increase the chance that you also get more conscious thought of answers instead of just dropping in a number that pops up in their head, right? And another big advantage is the output. So if you just ask them with an open question, like what would you be willing to pay, then you get a huge range of responses, and it will be quite difficult for you to get any kind of meaningful results from it. But advanced pricing methods give you some really helpful outputs, such as the marginal willingness to pay. You can derive the acceptable price range, price demand curves, even market simulations.
So, I think advanced research methods that we've seen so far, super interesting to hear about all the different concepts that we have, but I'm hoping that in the next part, because we already have a Q&A in coming in, and I think if we can show it on the screen here, and I'm telling the amazing Zena who's helping us in the background, because I think it's a great transition into the next part. How do I know what method to use when? So Svea, is that what's coming up?
Yes, actually it is. We will start with a quick introduction, but I promise we will get there afterwards.
That's
So,
great.
um,
And with that, if you have any questions, if you're watching us, please feel free to send them to the Q&A, and then we'll continue answering them either on the fly if they relate directly to what's happening, or towards the end if we're collecting them.
yes, cool. Okay, first, to answer the question on this chart here, I mean, there are plenty of advanced pricing methods, but I would say the most common, the most popular ones are the Van Westendorp, the one we just saw in the beginning, the Gabor-Granger, and the choice-based conjoint. And to give you a super quick overview, so the Van Westendorp is also called price sensitivity meter because it measures the price sensitivity by means of 4 open questions. Then we have the Gabor-Granger, which uses or measures the likelihood of people buying the product at different price points by means of scaled questions. And then the choice-based conjoints offer a more realistic approach to measuring willingness to pay by making consumers choose between different product scenarios and allowing them to identify the most important attributes of your product and how it interacts with the willingness to pay.
Okay. So I might be jumping ahead of myself here because I know how meticulous you are, but Svea, are we gonna
You
get an
know,
example on how each pricing method can be used?
of course, of
I
course.
knew it.
And also to stay in the flow of our last webinar, I think last week Gabriela used the example of a streaming provider
Mhm.
because apparently you are all fans now, Hussein. So I thought I'd stick with it and just go through some scenarios that like a streaming provider could have. So let's look at the first one. Let's say the streaming provider would like to offer a significant discount for Black Friday on their annual subscription, but they haven't really a clue how low they can go, basically. So, in what price range or range the discount should fall. And they are scared that they might drop too low and that it would actually hurt the perceived value of their subscription, right? In this case, the Van Westendorp can be quite helpful to give a first idea. How does it work? We would ask the consumers for key questions. First, at what price they think that the subscription would be too expensive so that they wouldn't consider it at all. At what price it would be expensive but acceptable. At what price it would be a good bargain. And at what price it would be too cheap so that they would doubt actually the quality of the offering. And then the audience is already familiar with this beautiful picture. So you can plot the 4 lines and then look at the intersections and then, for example, derive the acceptable price range in which your discount could fall. You could also see the market reference price and also the optimal price where the resistance to purchase is lowest.
So we talked about how each advanced pricing method is a little different and used for different purposes. When would the Van Westendorp fulfill sort of the main purpose of what we want to do?
Yeah, so the Van Westendorp is generally helpful if you really have no clue about the range in which your price
Mhm.
could fall, if you want to get a better understanding of that. Also, it's more helpful for well-known everyday kind of products which have a very broad target group, like a drink where people have a general feeling about the pricing. And I would say it's also more useful if you're looking at a total level of your target group and not really interested to like doing systematic comparison, for example, for experimental designs. Okay, so then let's continue with a second scenario for our streaming provider. Let's say they want to create or offer some limited time Christmas gift subscription. And they would like to find the ideal price, which of course appeals to most of their target group, but also maximizes their gift subscriptions. In this case, the Gabor Granger can be quite helpful. We would define 5 to 6 price point and then ask them for their likelihood to purchase the subscription deal at different price points. So it's like a negotiation that you do with the respondents. And based on that, we can then create a price demand curve, which shows the cumulative percentage of the consumers who would be willing to purchase at each of the price points. And we could even do more advanced calculations like creating hypothetical revenue scenarios or calculating the price elasticity.
And what would be our use case here? Exactly. At this point, I know exactly what's coming.
Okay, so Gabo Granger is usually the best idea if your business already has a clear idea of how the price ranges would look like. If you already have an established product and maybe want to increase or lower the price and see what it does with the demand. Also, definitely more useful for more niche products. Like our calendar, where it's not as clear like what it could cost. And then I feel like it's also a better method if you want to do systematic or experimental analysis, like comparing different product bundles or different target groups or countries, because it's just easier than the Van Wessen job. Okay, and then I, of course, also have an example for our last candidate, the choice-based conjoint. So let's say our streaming provider would like to design some kind of family-friendly subscription plan, and they want to understand, first of all, what feature combinations are very attractive to families and how it interacts with their willingness to pay. In this case, a choice-based conjoint can be helpful. What we would do would be to define 3 to 5 attributes and characteristics of each attributes, and then create random sets which simulate a subscription package, and then make respondents decide between them. And you can see here that the list of outputs from a conjoint is actually quite long, so we can learn a lot from it, from the relative importance that people place in these different attributes and their characteristics. We can run a ranking on the different combinations. We can even do target group clusters or more complex market simulations. And again, anticipating your question, Hussein, when would the conjoint be the right choice? As you saw, it can help you if you also want to analyze the relative importance of different features or understand how consumers make trade-off between the price and the different features. It's also useful if you want to make more complex calculations, for example, include the competitor in your market simulations. And it's also more helpful if you already know or if you are clear about 4 to 5 core attributes that you are really very sure about, because otherwise with a conjoint it gets very complex very quickly.
I I like the question that's on this slide.
Okay, good.
Because I feel like I understood that, okay, we have limited options and we would have to choose, and we have a general now understanding of everything that's happening. But my question to you would be, say, for example, I want to create like a Black Friday or a Christmas promotional bundle. So similar to what our streaming service provider here is creating, and I want to include multiple features, things like, I don't know, offline downloads, ad-free experience, a plethora of Christmas movies for people like Hussein. Um, so how do I even choose sort of which features I need to be included in these bundles to sort of maximize the appeal? Because at the end of the day, I need to choose these features to know what I'm pricing, right? So how did I make that choice during the holiday season? Because I understand that conjoints would only allow for a limited number of features and would give me only relative values, right?
Yes, very good. I see that you listened, and
I I do my
homework.
homework.
Yes, and it's a very good point, a very good question. Of course, you want to make sure if you have a multitude of product features, which one to promote for your offering to then even find the optimal price. And yes, conjoint isn't always ideal because you are very limited with the number of features. But there is one interesting candidate, which is called feature value matrix, which can help you prioritize and categorize features. And the feature value matrix is not a classic pricing method. It's rather a blend of utility methods and pricing methods. And it can be used to categorize features based on their relevance and their value to consumers. And since this is not as popular and well known, I thought that we can use the remaining time to go through it step by step. What do you think, Hussein?
I love that idea. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So going back to our example, you already mentioned some possible features for a streaming provider, right? And this is exactly the first thing that we would do, right? So we would create a full list of possible features that we as the streaming provider could potentially offer to our consumers or our target group. In this case, it's 20 possible features, could be more or less. The important thing is that the list should include features where you are pretty confident that they are essential to consumers, so that the consumers just expect them in your subscription plan. But then also other features which are more niche, where you think could be more interesting for specific subgroups. So that's a good mixture, right? Okay, so next step, you would then ask the respondents to create their ideal streaming account. So you would just present them with a full list of features you just created. And then by means of a multiple choice question, you would ask them, hey, which of the features would your ideal streaming account have? And of course, we want to have more realistic results. So we set a little reminder. Please remember, it's like in real life, the more features you choose, the more expensive the product usually gets, right?
So I'm guessing based on this setup that we have and these notes that this wouldn't be suitable for maybe every product type, right?
Yes, you got it.
Okay.
So this method is definitely more suitable for services or products that can be created in a bundle or customized by the client. So banking products, travel products, insurances, subscriptions, stuff like that.
You heard it here, folks. If you're preparing for Q4, if you're bundling products, if you're in banking, if you're in streaming, if you're in FMCG, if you're creating a holiday packet, tune in. This is about to get interesting.
Yes, it is. Because in the next step, we will show the respondents their ideal product or streaming account, in this case again, in which features they selected. And then we would ask them, hey, how much would you pay per month for your ideal streaming account with these kind of features?
Okay. Let me stop you right here. Let us take a pause because we
I know
started.
what you're getting. I know what you're getting at.
It feels like this entire video cast you even know what I've been getting at, but I have to do this because we started with a meme, we started with an activity, we started with a whole spiel about how we are not supposed to ask participants what they are willing to pay. So what's happening?
I know you are right, and I stick to what I said in the beginning. But in this case, we are actually not asking for the price that we want to slap on a price tag,
Mhm.
but rather as a workaround to figure out the value that people place into these different features. But I hope it gets more clear in the next slide. Okay.
I'll be
So
patient.
okay, so once the field work is done and we have our responses, we can then calculate the relevance and the perceived value of each feature. How do we do that? The relevance is simply the share of participants who choose each of the features, and the value is the correlation of the feature and the final price mentioned by each respondent. So you see, it's not the final price we want to put on the price tag. It's just a workaround to run a correlation analysis. And then once we have both measures, we can actually categorize the features in this 4-quadrant matrix. So let's go through it step by step. In the upper left corner, we see features that are very popular among the target group, but they are not really willing to pay extra for them. So these are kind of basic, essential features that are a must-have in every subscription in this case. Then we have the performers. These are features that people are really into, that are very relevant, and they would also pay extra for them. And these are ideal features to create different bundles. For example, to create a premium bundle compared to a basic bundle. Then we have add-ons. These are features that are only relevant to few customers, but those who care about them would also be willing to pay extra. So these can be used as add-ons, obviously, but also to target a specific niche target groups. And then we have question marks, so features that have very little relevance and they are also not willing to pay for it. So these should be reconsidered or completely discarded. Okay, and then let's just have a quick look. This is how an output could look like. It's dummy data in this case, but just to give you an idea. So let's say we figured out that features like offline download, multiple user profiles, or personalized recommendations, that these are like essential basic features that your subscription deal just has to offer, like, right? It's non-negotiable. And then there are maybe features like ad-free viewing, family sharing plans, monthly cancellations that people really appreciate and they would also pay extra for it, right? So these are ideal, for example, for our premium limited Christmas promotion offering, right? And then we have some add-on features like maybe parental control or 4K Ultra HD streaming, which is maybe more relevant to niche groups. Maybe if you want to create something for parents or for a gaming special or something. So yeah, I hope it gets clear. And then maybe another thought, those in the audience who participated in last week's webinar with Gabriela already got a sneak peek into psychographic segmentation. And if you figured out your target group, of course, you can also run it for your specific target group, because it's quite likely that if you're, for example, targeting power motivated people, they will probably more prone towards features like exclusive content access, early access to new releases, or priority customer support. Whereas people with an affiliation motive, they might be more interested in a family sharing plan or multiple user profiles or giftable subscriptions. So this analysis can also help you to create specific bundles that are customized for your target group. Of course, it also works with any kind of other target group split or analysis.
Okay, I love that you did this. We went and related back to the first webinar here, and the first step. So the first step that we have of this feature value matrix is categorize and know how to build the promotion that we want to build, and create it, have it ready, and now we're looking to find the perfect price.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And do you already have a guess which method can be used, or?
Hmm. I'm gonna go out on a limb and go ahead and pretend, but I'm gonna say a Gabo Granger would make sense here.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. I would say the same, because I mean it's likely that the streaming provider already has a clear idea in what range they could go based, for example, on their usual annual subscription plans. Also, we already have defined our perfect promotion bundle now with the right features, and it's just easier to also systematically compare, for example, target group splits. So, how do we do that? Um, the first step would be that we show the respondents what they get. So basically, we explain the exclusive giftable subscription Christmas deal and what features it would include, the ones that we have defined in the feature value matrix. And then we would ask for their general likelihood to purchase the subscription on a monthly basis at a price that seems attractive or reasonable to them.
I'm gonna jump in to sort of ask you a question that I always get here, which is why are we doing the second step here, and why are we already excluding rejectors from participating in the study?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's just helpful to exclude them or separate them because otherwise it's just hard to analyze the data because you won't really know if the answers are due to the price or just simply a lack of interest in the product, for example, right? So it's just cleaner that way.
Mhm.
Okay, so now to those who express a general interest in our um, product, we would present them with 5 to 6 prefixed prices, which we would define together with the streaming provider. And the respondents each get a randomly assigned, basically start into the negotiation. And let's say we ask them, hey, how likely is it that you would purchase the subscription deal at a price of $9.99 per month? If the respondent would say, no, I think it's too expensive, wouldn't purchase it, then we present them with the next lowest price point. So how likely is it that you would purchase at $7.99? If the respondent said, well, sounds like a good offer, I would do that, then we present them with the next highest price point, right? And this kind of negotiation goes on until we have identified the highest possible price for each respondent. And then, based on the results, we can draw these price demand curves. We also already saw that in the other chart. So the amount here shows the cumulative demand per price point because it's based on the assumption that people who would purchase at a specific price would also purchase the deal at a lower price point.
Mhm.
And we could see in this example, for example, that about 91% of those who are generally attracted by our offer would also buy it for $7.99, whereas only 47% would buy it at $15.99, right? And then we can also do something like calculating a hypothetical revenue just to give us some kind of guidance. Of course, the streaming provider has to look at the results knowing their business background. But in this case, it's the hypothetical revenue for 100,000 potential customers. And here it will show us, for example, that at a price of $11.99, we would be able to reach the highest possible revenue.
And I think with that, we answered also the upcoming question that's in our Q&A section here. And I'm going to ask the amazing Zena to pop it up on our screen again. But in the meantime, I can also read it out. Ah, perfect. So can you tell us more about the Gabo-Granger demand curve and how does it show the price we need to decide at? So in a typical Apinio platform, so if you're running the test with us, you'll see that these things will already be plotted for you, and the hypothetical revenue and the best price point will already be put there for you. But Svea, say we're looking at something that is not Apinio, and we're looking at the demand curve. What are maybe one thing that I should look at and be keep an eye out for in a Gabo Granger demand curve?
One thing that you can always look out for, I mean, in this example, it's not as clear, but it's basically a drop, like a crick in the line, a drop where the demand significantly drops. Because this is always a good clue. Okay, after that, you will really like a higher price will really cost you a lot of customers. So rather go with somewhere above. Here, it's harder to tell, but you can already see that there's a stronger drop between 11.99 and 13.99. So
Mhm.
apparently, after that, you will lose a lot of demand, right?
There you have it. I think that's a pretty good tip to
Okay.
always know how to look at these demand curves. So what's coming up?
Yeah, maybe just one other thing, which I also really loved about the Gabor Granger, I mentioned it before, is that you really can systematically compare target groups and splits. So going back to our example with the psychographic target groups, that say we did run the analysis and we could now just split our results based on the motives. and see if our product actually resonates most with the target group that we are striving for, right? So, I mean, let's say we are targeting or going for power motivated people who say, what would you say based on the results? Like, does it good look for you?
I think we should target the power motivated people based on the results.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, if you're, for example, targeting affiliation people, you might have to even rethink your offer because they're not like buying on their full potential, right? Actually, other target groups would be more drawn to your offer and your pricing like this.
Yeah, and I mean, this could also be an idea. I mean, thinking about the seasonality and thinking about the upcoming quarter. Since I talked a lot with Gabriela about it, and now we're relating it back to that, we could have the chance to maybe advertise, sort of, in this case for the streaming service, to maybe advertise different bundles for the different affiliations and the different motives. Could that be possible? Could that be a thing? So maybe a similar price, we find a similar price in the middle, but then find different features that every affiliation would be into.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
mhm,
And then in this case, we could also run like an experimental approach, like with different, we call it monads, basically.
mhm.
So each respondent is then only answering one survey and then systematically compare the price demand curves for these different bundle and see if it works as it's supposed to.
Nice.
Okay. And with that, we are already at the end, I guess. Or do you have any more questions to say?
I do have one more question for you now that we're heading towards the end, because we talked a lot about sort of the three pricing methods. We talked about the additional value matrix. We talked about how we go about them. And I'm going to give our audience a chance to jump into the Q&A here really quickly if they have any questions. But maybe my sort of concluding question to you would be is, what are the three things you would want to leave us with? So, what are sort of three learnings about pricing and price research that you would want us to keep with us after everything you just shared with us in the webinar?
Yeah, good question. We love summing up things, right? So, the first thing I would say, the first learning or key takeaway would be to really narrow down exactly what features your product has to offer and clearly explain it to the consumers.
Mhm.
Because if the people don't understand exactly what they are supposed to pay for, you won't get any meaningful results, right? Then the second thing would be to choose the pricing method that really fits your specific needs, because we have seen that not all pricing methods work for every content. They come with different advantages and disadvantages and really depend on what kind of product you're offering, your target group, your goals. So if you are not sure which way to go, you can always ask our research consultants because they are really trained in giving you expert advice on that. And then the last thing would really be like doing bad pricing research is just as bad as doing no pricing research at all. Like, trust me, when it's done incorrectly, it can really lead your business results in a complete or steer your business in a completely wrong direction. So please don't just ask consumers, hey, what are you willing to pay? It won't do you any good.
I feel like that needs to become one of our catchphrases. You know how Uncle Ben has with great power comes great responsibility? I would always like to have doing bad research is equally as bad as doing no research at all, if not worse sometimes, because you're driving decisions based on what you think is research, when in reality, it's not really good and structured research. Sveya, thank you so much for joining me for this video cast and teaching us all about pricing methods and how we can best use them to maximize our Q4 and to make the most out of the seasonality that's coming in with us. Super excited and was super happy to have you here. In case any one of our participants has any questions, we're all market research nerds. Feel free to reach out to us, LinkedIn, via email, whatever you may have. You want to have a conversation about market research, let's have it. We'd be happy to have it with you. And until then, our next video cast is already happening next week. about all about advertising and how to optimize your PR for the upcoming seasonality. And until then, thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.